Is the industry of web development and technology, AI coding, all this stuff, is there a saturation problem there? Is that real or is that just an excuse or what's the deal there? Well, I don't know if you guys have been paying attention, but I've been posting shorts every single day for almost a month now. It's been going great. Thank you so much if you've been supporting, liking, commenting on those. One interesting comment I got on one of them recently was, what's your opinion of entering in fields that are saturated, for example, web development using no code options? What advice would you give to differentiate or build clientele when just getting started? It's a great question. I think we're all thinking about it. Let's talk about it. I'm going to share some ideas here and you guys let me know what you think in the comments. So the idea is that a lot of people are using AI coding tools to build websites or just to get into web design and all these different things. I think the first thing is this concept of saturation. If we feel like something is saturated, there's two angles I want to hit on this from. The first angle is that if something is saturated, then that generally might mean that, it's hot, like it's something to be doing, but it also could somewhat signal that there is a reasonable amount of demand for it. Now, that's not necessarily a one-to-one, but people aren't going to flock to something that isn't making money, that isn't, in need at all. That just wouldn't make any sense. So that is like somewhat of a good sign if something is, growing rapidly and people are trying to get into it. So let's keep that in mind. The next thing, and this is a big one that's tangential to this, is that I don't know about you guys, but I've been living in the WordPress and adjacent world for like 2 years now. And when you really take a step back, when you dive so far in and then you take a step back, it is actually a bubble. Think about if you are the person that's like into AI and automation, web development, what have you. If you know what N8N is, like this is no shade at N8N, but can you imagine how many people in the world actually understand what N8N is? Like as an example, maybe you do, maybe you don't. But my point is, the automation, the AI game, not everyone and their mother is using all of these different tools. So you may feel like it's saturated, but in actuality, it's not like every single person in the world is using these things, which again turns out to be a good thing because if everybody's not using them, if it's not completely ubiquitous, then you do have people to sell to. So those are a couple of my thoughts on the saturation piece itself. Okay, so if something is saturated, we're looking at this landscape and it looks like there's a ton of people, like a lot of people possibly making money. First of all, and the other thing there too is if people are making money, it's generally because like they're being the loudest and then it makes it seem like everyone's making money or it makes it seem like, it's just really easy and everyone's doing it. So you should too. You have to try to fight through that a little bit and, use a lot of critical thinking to see like what is actually making sense, what's profitable, what's not, that type of thing. I'm going to give you advice throughout this video that I wouldn't say that you just jump into something because of this saturation. I would say personally, you have to be somewhat interested in it, potentially show a little bit of like skill at it. Not, you don't have to be perfect, but like you have to like, don't just go into web development because you think that's the skill. Don't go into AI and mess around with it because you think it is. And let me give you a perfect person example. I've learned throughout my career that I started building websites because I thought that was cool. I wanted to have a website, etc. But now I've realized that I am a shit designer. So I actually don't think I should be building websites that much. I could be talking about the dynamic data piece. I could be talking about like the logic, conditions, any sort of data architecture structure and things like that. But I am so bad on the visuals that I don't really want to go there. I don't want to do any of that. I don't want to design my thumbnails. I don't want to edit my videos. You get what I'm saying? And unfortunately, if you're just starting out, I can't really tell you what your thing is if you are not a designer, if you are not XYZ. I can't do that for you. That's something that you have to answer for yourself. But from my personal experience, that's what I've learned. So what that's triggered in my mind is that, okay, well, I'm much better at like the idea of automating things or building a system or something like that. Some stuff that's like more back end and process driven and system driven rather than visual and artsy, so to speak. So just keep that in your back pocket as you move through this because you're never going to know what you are and what you aren't until you keep trying things. That's just a tip for you. Let's get back to some of the concrete stuff that's happening now. What is actually going on when you look at this? Well, we are in a bubble. So what that means is it looks like and feels like if you've taken, more than 5 minutes of your time to be in here, it feels like there's everyone and their mother is in on this. That's not actually the reality. You're just like, and it's such a high concentration of people that are doing these things. Now, what also is extremely present within that though, is that it's the wild, wild west now. Like this is literally, we are early adopter stage. And what that means is that a lot of people are just they're just trying stuff and throwing throwing it at the wall and seeing what sticks, seeing what gets clicks on YouTube, seeing what makes them a dollar in agency land, whatever. So that's something that you could absolutely do. There is money out there to be made on the content side if that's your game, or it sounds like more specifically with this question and perhaps you watching, it's more of like providing services to people. Pretty much the typical way that ends up happening though is you just go out and you just try a bunch. You just try to automate stuff for yourself. You try to automate stuff for your current clients or whoever, and then you just see what works in that sense. And again, I use the concept of automating, but doing whatever, like building with AI or something like that. The biggest problem right now that's happening is there's not a lot of clarity and like focus that's going on. There's not a lot of execution and from that perspective, because again, everybody's throwing things at the wall and seeing what sticks. So there's a lot of good advice out there of how to do this better. You just got to find it. But what I would tell you and what I've seen is that you have to just be more laser focused on what you're, offering. You can cut through a lot of that bullshit saturation and everything like that if you and your business are a little tighter. How do you actually do this? This isn't anything new. People are going to tell you to pick a niche. I've personally never loved the idea of niche as it was described to me at first. I don't want to like just work with doctors or just build a bunch of websites. The reality of that though is if you want to build a very boring business, you can make a lot of money doing that. And I think that you should do that if that's your goal, is to make money. If you're still in your wild and free stage and you don't want to just like focus on that and just put in the time and make the money like that very boringly, then you could try to be a little wider, or you could try to do a different type of niche. I actually watched a video recently from a creator named Mark Waters. It popped up on my feed. It was talking about niching, and it was an interesting take on it. There's kind of like three he kind of outlines. The one is skill-based, so it's something you're good at. The second is like you are the niche, and I subscribe more to that one than specifically the first one. But then the third one is like kind of like more of a mission where you're kind of combining both of those. It's a skill, but you're always pointed at like a specific mission, and your skills could change. That one really resonated with me, and that's something that you might want to look into. Again, I'll link the link down below for you to watch that video. But it ends up being pretty simple. As soon as you find some level of person that you could target, then just continue to target them. And you want to have an offer, obviously. The person that I've seen the best offer training from pretty much is Alex Hormozi. He gets really in depth with it, but ultimately you literally just need to have a one-liner offer for a specific person, and then you at least have an opportunity to measure how well that's doing because you know exactly what you're looking for and you know what the offer is. Obviously, throughout doing this, you're building some case studies, you're getting some testimonial stuff like that. And I really think this is the big one, okay? And this is probably like the thing that I'm most qualified to talk about, is literally just building in public and just showing people exactly what you're doing and how much you're doing it and like your highs and your lows. If you're not comfortable doing that, you could just not do that, I guess, but I would highly recommend that you just pick up a camera and just start posting things on the internet. The reality is nobody is going to give a shit about the bad stuff, and then the cool stuff is just going to be a net positive for you. You don't need to feel embarrassed if you do something wrong and you report on it or whatever. It's like, it's not really a big deal. But if you're not sharing anything, then you have zero chance at like growing from that regard. You're going to rely solely pretty much on like luck and then people finding your things like through the grapevine or something like that. You have to sounds so stupid, cliche. You have to put yourself out there. So to kind of bring this back to the original question, how to differentiate and build your clientele. It really depends on kind of where you start, but I'm assuming if you're starting from scratch, then you have, again, kind of nothing to lose. I would try to avoid doing work for free if you can, but that's still not the worst thing in the world. An actual blueprint would be that, if you want to automate things or if you want to build stuff with AI, do it for yourself. Even if it's a fake brand, like make up a fake brand and just go through the process. Hey, and while you're doing this, why don't you just screen record your PC or Mac or whatever while you're doing it, just so you have that and you can utilize that in some other way, maybe down the line. Maybe just talking to a cheap microphone or something like that while you're doing it to, just like, why not? Put that on YouTube. Who cares? I'm telling you this, random thought thrown in here, that when you look back, if you do that today and then you just keep doing it for 5 years, you're going to be amazed and so happy that you have that footage and that's publicly available. You're going to be so happy that you can see that. One of the biggest ways you can differentiate when you're just starting out there is you're being honest and upfront with your clients, being like, hey, listen, I've done this for myself. I've tried it. I haven't done it for many clients yet. I'm really trying to get my business off the ground. I'm willing to give you a discount on my services just to make sure that I, can get the project and get the testimonials, and I'm going to perform as best as I can for you, and I'm not going to let this fail. People really appreciate the honesty and the transparency, let me tell you that. So again, to recap, the bottom line here is we're very early to this stuff that we're talking about specifically. We're all very early adopters. There's a lot of money floating around out there that you can get your hands on if you want. But ultimately, I'm going to tell you this. If you start this now, in 5 years and 10 years, there's going to be more new stuff. So if you stick with it, you're going to have to go through these cycles of this early adoption stuff again. The biggest point of leverage that you can have is, again, the content that you're creating or just the skills that you're amassing and the clients that you're putting together. And the way to differentiate from those things is just always being honest and transparent and trying to do your best to provide for them. The last thing, and honestly, I'll tell you straight up, I've actually strayed away from this one because I'm an idiot, is putting value before everything. We all want to make money, but at the same time, like you have to provide value. And especially when you're starting out first and nobody knows who you are, you have no track record at your disposal to leverage. So the only thing that you can do is provide a ridiculous amount of value up front so people realize, oh, this person actually knows what they're doing. Oh, this person is actually like somewhat decent or gives a fuck. And then they're willing to talk to you and possibly willing to buy from you. So I like to say none of these things are ever really easy, but that's not why we start our own businesses. That's not why we do this. Nobody said it was going to be easy, but it does have the opportunity to be very fulfilling and rewarding if you do things ethically, you do it the right way, and you like doing what you're doing. I've been telling myself recently to not worry about these types of things and just try to keep my head down and keep working and keep sharing and keep providing value. So far, it's going okay. Hopefully, it goes okay for you as well. I hope you got something out of these tips. Hope it was a little bit helpful. If it was, drop a like on the video. Leave any comments down below. If you did agree with stuff, didn't agree with stuff, you got things to add, I'm always happy to hear it. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, I greatly appreciate it. And I will talk to you in the next one.